will have to feed in that data. So you have your invoice number, invoice date, value, taxable value. Here, you don't have to give the GST number because it's a business to consumer. Consumer may not have given his GST number also to you. So, but if he has exceeded 2.5 lakhs, there's a big banquet party, some wedding party done, you have to report this data to them. Okay? And if it is come through an e-commerce, then the e-commerce GST number is required. Business to consumer small, there summarized information is required based on type. Type means whether it is to an e-commerce operator or other than e-commerce operator. A place of supply, that is in which state this has taken place, what is the rate and the taxable value and the cess amount. So this is just a summary figure of your sales. Going further, we have the credit note, debit notes. Just briefly, I'll touch upon that whatever invoices, whatever data has been uploaded once, there are no revised returns, unlike income tax or whatever you are looking at. So if there is some change later on, somebody disputes something, you have to give him a credit note for the same. That credit note may be in a subsequent month or maybe 3 months later or whenever. Maximum you can go is up to September of the next financial year. Okay. So all that credit notes, if there is anything, that has to be fed in out here, and that credit notes, whatever you have issued to this party, that will have to be given out here. So again, the credit note details to which GST number, because here you are reversing the tax, input tax, your output tax. So accordingly, that input tax credit which he had claimed earlier, your other recipient, that also would get reversed. So you have to inform again which is the GST number, what are the invoice number, original invoice number, the original invoice date, your note, your credit note number and its date, the document type, whether it's a credit note, debit note or a refund voucher. There's something called a refund voucher also, which I'll touch upon later. Then there's a reason for issuing document. This also has a master. You just can't say that there can be anything. So the reasons given are just this much. There's a post-sale discount, there's a deficiency in service. Because of this, I have given, let's say, a debit note, a credit note to the customer. I don't know how many will want to say deficiency in service, but that's what the government wants us to do. And correction in invoice, change in POS, place of supply. Unfortunately, there is no bad debts out here, so I don't know how to treat bad debts. This person is not paying, what do I do? How do I reduce my liability? So that is a question which maybe has to be addressed out here. And going further, the place of supply, the note or refund voucher value, the amount of credit note that I am giving to the party, what was the taxable value and the rate thereof. Okay. The government doesn't want us to, in the upload return stage, they don't want us to bifurcate between IGST, CGST, SGST, because they will get it from the details. What is the place of supply? What is the GST number of your organization? And what is the GST number of the recipient? So accordingly, they will match it and they will put in their details that this belongs to IGST or CGST, SGST. Cess is something which is, they are not asking the rate, so therefore they are asking directly the amount. And then they also introduced this good feature basically for whether it is a pre-GST invoice for which now I am giving a credit note. So there might have been cases wherein of the past there is something still in dispute. Now you are giving that. For that type of an invoice, maybe it will try to search for the invoice and tell you you are never given this invoice, so that's why they have introduced this parameter. So it becomes clear that this is of a pre-GST period. Going further, we have credit notes, debit notes of unregistered sales, basically. So that was each line invoice-wise. I had to put in my invoice number, etc. Now again, that is not there. So again, whether it was for a B2C, large, etc., what is the refund number or the note number, credit note number, voucher date, what is the document type, etc., reason for issuing document. So these are typically data which is to be given by you. Yes, this is line wise for each and every credit note. This is not a summarized information. Moving further, there is exports. We don't do much of exports, so I will not touch upon this. I have a lack of, time shortage, so I'm just jumping around. We'll take up questions maybe later. Advances. If we are, formally there was a requirement in the earlier returns that if advances had been received, we had to report each and every line item of advances, give them some transaction ID, and that transaction ID wise keep it in my system, and then finally when that advance is being adjusted, that transaction ID would be said that this has been taken care of in so and so invoice. At that time, there was nothing saying that if I have to refund the advance, what happens? So the advance refund was never considered only in the earlier returns. Now, yep, I know I'm running out of time. Just another 5 minutes. Now what has happened is there was a huge outcry about the advance part that there's so much of work to be done on advances. So they have said that, okay, for advances, give me summarized information. That place of supply wise and rate of tax wise, what is the gross advance received by me, and therefore what is the tax that the government will determine. So this is summarized information. But the refund vouchers, they have made it into the refund notes. So this becomes each and every line item wise details which they are asking for advances also. So if it is an advance receipt, you have to give line item wise. Advances, you have to give summarized. So there is some discrepancy here also. So that was advances which I have received and advances which I have adjusted. That has to be summarized and reported to the government at the month end. These are exempted, nil rated and non-GST outward supplies details. So supplies to registered, unregistered and interstate and intrastate have to be broken up, nil rated, exempted and non-GST. Okay. And finally, we have an HSN summary of my sales. So as Mr. Goyal had said, whatever items are being, formerly they had wanted it HSN plus SSE, that means the service accounting codes also. Now there is no service accounting code requirement for putting this. I assume that is how it is. But the HSN codes, that means whatever I'm selling over the counter or maybe the minibar sales, those items will have to be reported out here, and the value of that, etc., will have to be given out here. And finally comes a very important thing, which is document number series. So here is for all your documents which are there, you have to give them that my starting in this month, my series started from so and so number to so and so number. Okay. All my outward invoices. So if you have at your outlet level one number going on for each and every outlet, you have different numbers. For your hotel invoice, there are different numbers. Not just that, you have 5 hotels in the state of Maharashtra. All of them have to have different numbers. You just can't say that my coffee shop means CC001. All of them cannot follow CC001. So be careful of how your numbering is being done. If your systems are not updated, get it prefixed by some company code or hotel code or whatever. And all those series have to be reported. How many invoices you have done. It is not just invoices. There is a series of transactions which you have to report. So it's invoice for outward supply, invoice for inward supply from unregistered person, any revised invoice, debit note, credit note, receipt voucher, payment voucher, refund voucher. All these details for everything, whatever you are issuing, you have to have a start number and an end number of the month, which you have to report to the government. And next month it has to start from the next number, please. Okay. So that I think I am just finished it. All the masters are given here. There are masters on UQC, reasons for issuing note, what is the nature of document, etc. I suggest please all go through this document. It's very important for you because all of you all are registered, I'm sure, and all of them, you all have to file your returns. There is still another month and a half to go. Go through that. I'll briefly just touch upon input tax credit on stocks which were there as on 30th June. What used to happen was we had service tax on rooms, right? But there were a lot of equipment being purchased for rooms. Like you have maybe linen, toiletries, etc. The VAT paid on such equipment was never being claimed as an input tax credit. Not available because they were used for room supplies. You are technically eligible to claim input tax credit on such items. You will have to show that entire, reverse it, show it as your income and claim it as an input tax credit and knock it off against your GST liability of the next month. but past 12 months is only allowed. This I briefly covered in my earliest talk also, that what will be requirements for you. So kindly, if you want, I'll circulate these slides also later on so that we can have a look at that. There will be software requirements. You need to have audit trails, lock your voucher number series, upload data in Excel, etc. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kagalwala. Friends, we have come to the end of our first session. We are going to take a break of half an hour, but I think we'll have to shorten the break. I request you to partake in the excellent buffet high tea laid out by the Trident and come back to your seats. I'm sure the team would, the service team would assist you to clear your plates. You can partake and bring it on the seat and continue with the question answer sessions, which I think everybody is awaiting. Thank you. I wish to invite Mr. Vishambar Shevakramani, promoter of RAS Group of Hotels and our executive committee member and the chairman of the seminar subcommittee, to kindly moderate the session. Mr. Vishambar, please, sir.
Thank you, Aspi. I would request that people please come sit down. You're free to bring your cup of tea and your plate to the chair. The service staff here will help you clear it when you need to. Please. The later we start, the less number of questions we can ask. So if you are here for questions and answers, then I think please let's get started as quickly as possible. Can we take a vote? What's more important, the food or the questions? Can I request our EC members to please bring in everybody who's standing to their chairs? Ladies and gentlemen, do I have your permission to begin now? Good. Earlier this afternoon, we had a fruitful discussion with Mr. Govind Goyal guiding us through the GST laws, and Mr. Kuresh Kagalwala taking us through the software requirements and the GST returns. We've also had a fruitful high tea. So, so to begin, this session is about questions, and so I want to tell you about this never emptying vessel, what we call the Aksha Patra. Now, the Aksha Patra is this vessel that the sun god gave to Yudhishthira so that the Pandavas would never go hungry, so that the vessel will always remain full. Oh, will never be empty, not full, but will never be empty. So, we are kind of having a similar problem with GST. It's because even after the 2 sessions that we've had this morning, we have not finished the questions we have. We are going to have more and more questions, and this session is really about getting your questions answered. And for that, we have the 2 commissioners. One, in fact, is the principal commissioner of GST, Sujata Sharma, Sangeeta Sharma, sorry, and Mr. Narendra Kulkarni, who's the Commissioner of GST. To introduce the commissioners, I will start with Mr. Narendra Kulkarni. Mr. Narendra Kulkarni has an MBA in finance from the University of Rochester, and he is a Bachelor of Civil Engineering from Walchand College of Sangli. He has 23 years of experience in the government service. He currently holds the charge as Commissioner GST Raigad. To his credit, he has several honors, and he has received from his own department, the Central Board of Indirect Taxes. Sorry. The second is Madam Sangeeta Sharma. She is the Secretarial Working Group Convener on GST for the travel and tourism industry on behalf of the Central Board of Indirect Taxes. She currently holds the charge as Additional Director General, Vigilance for both Maharashtra and Goa. During her 31 years tenure, Madam Sharma has had training at the National Defense College and was awarded an MPhil degree for her paper on FDI in the defense sector from Annamalai University in Chennai. Madam Sharma was honored by the Presidential Award of Appreciation by her department for her distinguished record of service to the department and to the indirect taxes. I would now like to invite Mr. Quresh Kagalwala and Mr. Govind Goyal to please come up to the dais. I would also request Mr. Narendra Kulkarni and Madam Sangeeta Sharma to please come up on the dais. Please. Just leave one chair for me. For the next hour or so, we'll have an opportunity to clear our doubts on this great mystery of GST. I had an opportunity to talk for a few minutes with Madam Sangeeta Sharma, and since she is the secretarial convener for GST, for travel and tourism, I said there are certain issues that the hotel industry particularly faces with this GST implementation. And she has promised us that any genuine difficulty that our industry will face, she will take up with the council on her behalf. So I'm really glad that we have an opportunity to address our questions to her and to the other people on the panel, and then to also provide some solutions that we might be able to offer, and also to hear what they have to say and why a certain law is made or why a certain concession is not possible. So I have, by the way, myself got about 15 questions, which I believe would be the questions that most of us have about GST. So I will start asking those questions in a few minutes. But before I do that, I'll go and sit there and I'll ask one general question to Madam Sangeeta and Mr. Kulkarni. So I would like to begin by asking Madam Sangeeta Sharma and Mr. Kulkarni a two-part question. What, according to you, Madam, is the biggest pain points that we hotel and restaurant taxpayers will have in the implementation of GST, and how can we actually collaborate with the authorities to make this transition smoother?
So just a brief overview. Can you hear me? Yeah. When we set up this sectoral working group, it was 11th of June. that the secretary had a meeting with us, and the mandate is to, number one, frame a guidance note for the industry. The second point is to capture the pain points and to flag them to the committee. And thereafter to interact, that was also part of our mandate. He said, where the law is clear, please answer the questions clearly. Where the law is not clear, then please flag it to the law committee. So our attempt has been to address as many questions as possible. But here I'll deviate a bit and explain what Narendra and I were discussing. See, pre-GST there was a lot of discussion, there were negotiations, the GST council, the chief ministers were all, the finance ministers have said what they had to say, the rates have been laid out. When the law has rolled out, the gap between what was meant and what has been rendered is normally filled by the courts. There is no other way to fill that gap except through negotiations with the GST council to understand, because the law it sometimes rolls out in a very different way from what we intend. It's English after all, and it rolls out differently. So the guidance note is the attempt of the government, both the center and the states, in a very collaborative exercise to fill that gap as much as we can so that there is no litigation. Is the last thing we